ABC Radio Foyle. Yes, folks, firstly today, to a first, we believe, for the community and voluntary sector. There's no doubt about it for many communities here, especially in the darkest days of our troubles. It was the local women's group, the youth club, the community centre, the hub that provided some semblance of normality. I remember it well around our way. Our community centre was the beating heart in our little part of the world, social glue, if you like. And today, some of the most substantial funders of that sector are having a major residential in the city, including the Sainsbury Foundation, the Lottery, Henry Smith and Paul Hanlon Foundations, Carnegie UK, the Esme Fairbairn Foundation, and I'm delighted that Roisin Wood is here, the CEO of the Community Foundation for Northern Ireland. Roisin, things have changed a little bit, so I'm going to ask you to introduce our second guest in a second because Anand Shukla was unable to join us, and I'm delighted that Carl has stepped in at the very, very last minute. So listen, good to see you both. Roisin, pick up on that picture. It's changed dramatically from when I was a child and a young person here. I think it's fair to say, for so many in this jurisdiction, the sector was a lifeline, wasn't it?
I think it was. I think it still is. I think the sector, voluntary community sector in Northern Ireland, pick up an awful lot of what other sectors don't pick up. They're the lifeline of the communities around Derry and beyond that. I think they are just really, really critical. I think that they're the organisations that people trust, the organisations that people turn to, and they always will be that.
Carl is here as well, the Chief Executive of the Association of Charitable Foundations. Carl, there's a bigger picture here. We think it is a first for this part of the world that so many, let me use the phrase, the big hitters. I remember previously when I worked in the sector, you really hoped for some of those monies because it was solid money. It very often was pioneering money. It was small money maybe that gave way to bigger monies. And just tell us a wee bit more about the work of the association.
So we're the membership body for grant-making trusts and foundations in the UK. We have members in Northern Ireland, and we have many members that are based in the mainland that also fund in Northern Ireland. We've visited Belfast before, and visited Northern Ireland before, and brought funders here before, but we've never come to Derry, and I've been with ACF for 20 years, so I know this is a first, and it's very exciting.
It's a pity it's raining. But
it rains in England too.
I know. But how do you see it strategically, Carl, given what we've just touched on, the changing nature of things here? People think, we've got our peace now, hard won, it's secured, a peace treaty, if you like. I'm sure there's no need for a lot of that older money that used to be the lifeline that we've just touched on. How do you see all of that strategically?
Well, it's been very interesting talking about that with Community Foundation Northern Ireland colleagues yesterday and today. So I know that although the peace treaty has been won, there's a peace to be built, to be sustainable, and your organisation does amazing work there. And then another thread on that was coming through in conversations with the mayor today, who was brilliant, gave us such a warm welcome and gave some...
The new mayor or the outgoing?
The new mayor.
Which is Gracie Neal, since we sent her second day of work, I think.
I know, we wouldn't know. She was very on message and gave us a wonderful welcome and was able to give some great examples of the generosity here and also the examples of, as you were mentioning, what civil society organisations bring to society.
Yeah.
But I'm getting a bit sidetracked. The point I was trying to make was that perhaps during the Troubles, some of the other issues that are looked at in other parts of the UK were slightly masked because there was understandably so much focus on the peace, and that now that has been won,
right,
some of the other problems in society are able to come through and get their full moment in the spotlight and get attention. So,
Roisin, how do you function? I mean, I was looking at some of the figures here, and I love looking behind a lot of these foundations, but as our community foundation, you're an independent grant-making trust that supports all sorts of grassroots, 7 million a year. Are you depending on the Carols of this world to fund the work here, or do you, is it a sort of a portfolio funding? Because most people have heard of the Community Foundation.
It's a portfolio funding, so we manage 73 different funds, and some of those are private philanthropists, some of those are family foundations, some of them are other foundations in the UK, some of it are corporates. So we also have an endowment that we invest, that we try and take our costs out of it as well. So it's a mixture of one, and we need that mixture. You can't rely on just one source of funding. You have to try and get as many sources of funding as you can.
I think that's a lot of people see it as a stormont fund. Do you ever get that? Like, it's like the official one. The CFNI is the official one, but it's not at all.
No, it's not. And part of my job is to raise money, like every other voluntary community sector organisation. And also part of my job is to go to other parts of the UK and say, remember us here in Northern Ireland. If you want to fund in a UK perspective, you've got to fund here as well. And sometimes people forget sometimes about us over here. And my job is to remind them that there is significant need in Northern Ireland, significant, you know this yourself, right? Mental health, around the youth service, all those cuts have had massive impact here.
Social deprivation still.
Absolutely poverty. So yeah,
Are there?
violence against women and girls. So my job is to try and get as much money as I can out to the communities. My job isn't to tell the communities what they need. My job is to listen and try and get the money for them to do, because they know what's needed here.
Really, I mean, the figures are stark given what you've just said. Last month, the Charitable Aid Foundation finds that the state of giving in Northern Ireland, $250 million. Now it's down, but of all the constituencies in Northern Ireland, more than any UK average charities, and particularly for Derry and Strabane. And it's a strange one, really, isn't it? Rushing the people maybe who have least to give on paper and statistically, how do they give the most?
Absolutely give the most. Not only do they give the most from all parts of the UK, they also have the greatest pride in place. And that's what we were talking about earlier today, how people feel a connection to here. And I've been up and down to Derry all my life. There's a real people feel connected to this place, and they give not only money, but they give their time. That's why volunteers are so significant here. But it's definitely going to be critical for us going forward, is that giving is down. So we need to try and make sure that if you do want to give, that it's easy to give, and that we talk to philanthropists and say, if you've made money here, here's an opportunity to give it back to the communities that you grew up in.
Carol, I asked the question with respect. What do you say to those who say that the remarkable generosity of individuals, groups, private sector people, and the woodwork of all of this conversation, that it gets government off the hook? Because Stormont can go, look, Carol's got that, Rushing's got that, we don't need to fund that. There's so much generosity about the place. And do you get that? Do you hear that often?
Not recently. I mean, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, people might have said that. But the need is so great, and the challenges are so great. Cost of living increases, inflation, now the war in Iran pushing prices. I don't think anyone can say, oh, there's no problem here. There's plenty of money to meet all of the need. The fact is that despite the remarkable generosity, it's not increasing in line with costs. So I don't think, and I've never heard any government say, oh, there's no need for us to fund this. It's covered. The need is greater than the supply.
And Rushing, in this jurisdiction as you do, why do you believe charitable monies are different monies? Because they aren't. It's not like, Stormont's got 16 million and there you go. I've always experienced charitable monies as different monies, as intimate kinds of monies. You know what I mean?
It is, and also there's flexibility to it. I mean, that's what we, as a funder, we're very much saying we try to be as flexible as possible. Nobody wants to fill in a 20-page form. Nobody wants to. And also, community organisations, we have to trust them. We're part of an open and trust-based funder. We believe that communities know best how to spend the money. We have to trust them to know what they're doing. And they do know what they're doing. So I think charitable giving, the money that we give out often, it's very flexible, it's very agile, it's very much dictated to by the communities that we serve. And I think it has to remain that way, because the government money often brings with its severe restrictions. It's short-term. It's very heavily monitored, and that's fine, it's public money. But we give out charitable money that's much more flexible, and that's why it should remain.
Forgive my ignorance, because I should know. How runs you? Because I honestly thought there was a big Stormont stake in the Community Foundation for Northern Ireland. Who runs the foundation?
So we are run by a set of volunteer trustees.
Like a BBC model, it's there for the public good, but it's not run by any politicians.
No. We don't have any politicians. Significantly, no politicians on it. Our chair is Adrian Johnson from Derry City himself.
Johners.
Yes.
He was in my youth club.
But he's only there.
Johners is your chair.
He is.
He was International Fund for.
He was, yeah.
Johners is a very professional chap. That's amazing. He's journey. That's really interesting, because he came through youth work himself.
He was a
radical detached youth work in rave culture.
Absolutely.
Where he discovered his own leadership talents.
And was absolutely involved with the YMCA here. And as such, and Jared Dean is also one of our trustees from the Hollywell Trust.
Yes.
So we have a great connection here to Derry. We've had an office in Derry for the last 25 years, so we've always been connected to Derry. But Adrian has led, he's been as chair as long as I've been CEO. So he'll love that. Give him a shout out on the radio.
Goodness me, I can't believe that's right. Do you know what impresses me, Carl? I remember going up to see in your space circus. We're getting a new circus in an old primary school in this town as well. It was anything to do with either of you. But it's been funded by the Wolves since, and I thought I must look into that. And it's this story that, obviously they're all different stories, but it's so often this kind of thing. Sir Isaac Wilson was basically a shop guy, did clothes and furniture, and dreamt up mail order businesses away back in the day. Son of a Jewish cabinet maker, an immigrant from Poland, settled in the Gorbals in Glasgow. And since 55, Wilson alone have given over £1 billion to 14,000 projects from Cornwall to Shetland to Stratford. And then Henry Smith Allen was going to join us today. Henry Smith was a successful businessman and money lender, but he built his wealth through trade and property in the 1600s, left a huge sum of money behind, and that's still making money. So the money is still making money to enable you guys to do what you do. I think sometimes, and I think often, rightfully, the rich get a hard time, and billionaires sitting in digital playboys and playgirls for that matter. But there are good folk as well who are going, I want my legacy not just to be money, and fair play to those families, you know. They could just sit on their pile, but they didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And the gift that they gave is still giving today, as you've said. We have over 400 members in the Association of Charitable Foundations, and I could give you a similar story for each one of them. There's a lot of generosity in the world, and it's particularly impressive when people give not just within their lifetime, but with an eye to future generations as well.
And I think there's something special then if that money makes its way to community, to the Women's Group Youth Club, Rush, and you're going, Esme Fairbairn was a great woman, and now because of her wealth, we're getting a pool table, or we're getting, we're getting, young women's work or whatever. It's just, there's something veritable about that.
There is. And I think when you bring some of the funders here, and that's one of the reasons why I did this, and they see Northern Ireland in reality, they see Derry, it changes. It's like a light bulb moment. They suddenly see, oh, this is what our funding does. This is the impact of our funding. And that changes everything. You know, Anand came over to Northern Ireland with me about 1.5 years ago, and he said, I get it now, Wishing. I understand now what you're trying to do. And that changes the whole dynamic. And that's the reason why it was really important to have ACF members here over these next 2 days to see Derry, to see the groups that are funded here, to see the work that's happening here. So it brings it alive to them. And then if I can go back and then say, is there any chance of funding some different work here?
And Belfast's doing okay, right? Dublin's doing okay. How do you deal with the difficulties of people saying, well, look, the money and the government departments, for that matter, there should be more to the west of the province? Do you experience discrepancy in the day and daily, not just with giving your funding out rushing, but a sense that west of the Van needs to be not playing catch up, but maybe treated an awful lot fairly? Let's be honest, most of it in this jurisdiction is happening in Belfast. It's doing very well.
Well, we fund the whole of the north.
Yes.
So we and there's very few places we don't fund, to be honest. And we look at it every single quarter. We look at exactly where we fund, and our spread is really right throughout the north. We've always been very lucky, and we felt very seriously from the very beginning that Derry was absolutely, that's why we put an office here, that's why we have staff here who can actually tell us what's happening on the ground here to make sure that there's not that disparity. And that's often what's said. See, when you go to England, say everything's London based, you go, up the M6, you're not going to get anything. Well, that's what we tried to address from the very start, to say that, look, we fund everywhere in the north, and we have to make sure that where we fund is spread out in that way, and that's the reason why we always were connected here.
Well, what about a radical model going forward? And I know I'll throw this at you just for cheekiness of it. Starting with the need and funding from the need going forward, I think there's an awful lot of sector players, and I used to work in the sector, who do very well, and then they get more funding, and then they get more funding, and then they're meeting need and all the rest. But what about if all the need or disproportionate need was west of the band? Why not start there with the model, address that, fund that, and rebalance the place? Is that often put to you?
Well, I think we always start with the need, and part of what we try to do in the foundation, what happens to us is people come in often at a very small level, and they'll come in for a £2,000, £5,000 grant, and what we try to do is build their capacity as well. So we're different as a funder, because we just don't give the money and run. We want to build a capacity, so the next time you come to us for maybe something different, you're coming to us for 15,000 or 20,000, and then we build up. And that's what's really important, to build the capacity of people who can manage larger grants. And so it's the money's nice and safe where it goes to, but it has the maximum impact. So we always look at need as part of everything we look at.
It's not unlike what we used to call in the sector the Pudsey money. The Pudsey money was great money, because it was like, okay, you need to pay your electric bill, pay with the Pudsey money, children need. And it's not because I'm working with the BBC now, I make the point out without prejudice, but it's that flexibility of an understanding funder.
Absolutely.
It's not just a civil servant going, there you go, £1.5 million.
And also, it's really important. People say to me all the time, look what I need money to fund the finance manager. And that's not the big flashy thing, but that's critical. If you want to have a well-run organisation, you need a well-funded finance manager. And that's what we try to fund. We try to be very flexible. We don't say everything's got to be a programme. We say, what do you need? And then we fund what you need.
I've taken both of you away from conference. I appreciate you both being here, Carl, at the very, very last minute.
It's a pleasure.
What do you hope for this? Because invariably there'll be conversations. I was sitting beside Noel McMonigal out there, and I said, Noel, you want to, get a wee word? There's two very important people coming in here. He's with the Foyle Hospice and all the rest. There's going to be all of those little connections made and micro moments and all of the rest. Carl, apart from the obvious thing about a conference and, coming here and being here physically, what do you hope comes of it?
I hope there's some inspiration. We've only been here since this morning, and already it's been extremely inspiring. We saw a great project, the Acorn Project.
Oh, yeah. I'd like Sean Kelpie's part of that. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I could see many of our members really thinking deeply about what they'd seen and just being so impressed by the energy, the thought, the strategic nature, and the multi-layered approach that project is taking.
And the generosity of it, Carl, I seem to remember this is ordinary, everyday working people from every walk of life who say, I'll give 5 or 10% of my salary to Acorn. And then, who does that,
It's incredible. And as you were saying, the CAF report showing the generosity here. And then the next meeting we went to, as you know, was at the Guildhall with the mayor, where, again, we were hearing about some really inspiring plans and some present realities and lots of interest from our members in, well, how does this compare with my situation in Birmingham or my situation in Glasgow, depending on where those members are based. So hope for inspiration, connections, and some real learning about the great practice that's happening here and also the opportunities. We've spoken about the challenges, but funders are looking for opportunities. How can I get the most impact from my grants that I give?
And I must ask you as well about the European question, Mick, what do you like of the politics of Brexit? We know that the SEUPB Russian still operates here. That'll surprise a lot of people. I mean, the waterside transport hub, the Riverine in Strabane and Lifford is going to be experiencing substantial European monies. Does the direction of traffic there concern you in the broader sense for Northern Ireland in terms of there was a lot of money that was kind of switched out overnight, right?
There was, and it does. Of course, there's cuts, all government money's cut to sector. SUPB, the money from Europe is brilliant, but it's finite. There will be an end to it. And then there's a big question for all of us as to how do we fund the sector beyond that? And that's why it's very important that we look at philanthropic money. It's very important we look at how we bring new donors into fund. What are they going to get out of it? We need to make sure that giving for younger people, that they see younger philanthropists are coming up, that they see giving as part of their DNA going forward, and that we make giving, as we said, Northern Ireland people massively generous, massive pride in place. But how do we make giving easy for them?
Gotcha. So if anybody listen to this with a couple of spare extra million, you'll take their call.
I certainly will.
Listen, thank you both for popping in today. Busy day for you both, and indeed all of the represented major organisations, Carnegie, to say Esme Fairbairn and everything. My thanks to my guest, the studio, Carol Mack, is the Chief Executive of the Association of Charitable Foundations, and of course Roisin Wood, the CEO closer to home of the Community Foundation for Northern Ireland.